Well, I'm about to write an exegetical paper for my one of my Old Testament courses, and it's going to be quite a challenge. I'm not sure what topic to write on, but I'm just reading about the book of Daniel, book of Esther, Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. Those that exilic literature, and when the Babylonians, they conquered Jerusalem, right? They took all the captives, the remnants, those who remained, those who fought and remained. They were taken all the way to Babylon. That was their, the Assyrian policy, for instance, was that the people there were to be those who had resisted either Assyrian or Babylonian power were to be subject to deportation, to exile, to almost like to be like a refugee, to live like refugees, and one of them, of course, the book of Daniel tells a story of the descendants of those who had been captured, those exiles. And I'm wondering, like, for instance, Mordecai, his great-grandfather was Kish, one of those original inhabitants of Judea that was conquered by the Babylonians. And oftentimes I wondered, like, what have they learned? What have the Jews learned in their captivity? What sort of things have they studied? What sort of things have they observed? And what have they picked up on from the Babylonians, to which they to which in Babylon, to which they've been exiled? And I would imagine they would learn a great deal. The religion, the ancient Israelite religion of the first temple, was never to be the same again. It was the religion was going to change. That it would never be, I would say, the same. Just a mere sacrificial system of sacrificing and obeying God and His commandments, and that He would bless you and give you prosperity and long life in the land that you've been given. No, there were also ideas that the Jews would have taken from Babylon. They would have read the epics of Gilgamesh. They would have been influenced by a lot of the epics of the ancient Near East, of the Babylonians, of the Sumerians, of the Assyrians, of the Akkadians, and of especially the Persians. The idea of the resurrection from the dead might have had its origins in ancient Persian religion of Zoroastrianism. And the Jews that had been exiled to that part of the world, they were living in the new world, a world far removed from that of their own, a different kind of a world. And it's interesting how all this cross-pollination and influence of ideas and convergence of belief systems have occurred with the exiled Jews. And the post-exilic Judaism was slightly different from the pre-exilic, pre-conquest Judah and Israel in the days of the kings. It wasn't as primitive system of rituals and sacrifices anymore. This one had beliefs about the afterlife, about the mystical dimension. Not that those things were had been absent, but that that the Jews that who encountered all these different peoples, they saw their ideas, they took from their ideas, they took what was interesting, what was intriguing, and what was, I would say, true, and they worked those ideas and they wove them into their narratives, into their prophetic writings, and all these influences were taken up by the prophets of things like the Tower of Babel, the Great Flood, perhaps, the resurrection of the dead, the final judgment, life after death, all those things that the Israelites saw their neighbors, and they've enriched their culture, their religion, religious traditions, and their biblical faith. They have augmented with these new doctrines, new teachings, new realities that they've discovered in the outside world. In other words, God broke them, but God took them out of their comfort zones, from the familiar environment, familiar surroundings, things that they knew, things that they've been comfortable with, and put them in the situations where they were not so comfortable, that was foreign to them, that was alien, that was very world that was like very different from them, and had enriched them and expanded their minds, expanded their boundaries and horizons, and the Jews were compelled to adapt and adopt new practices, new philosophies, to consider looking at the world from a different perspective, to see things differently, and to broaden their horizons, like to step out of their that narrow little shell, that parochial, provincial shell, and just see the world out there. And it serves as an example. Like, I believe that the church right now, Christian church, is in a Babylonian exile, and that the Christian church, I believe, just like the exiled Jews, is finally learning from the world around them. We are learning the world around them. We are learning with these issues. We are dealing with new philosophies, new scientific discoveries and advancements. These tools that have been developed over the last, several centuries, and all the progress that mankind has made. We are learning these things. We are taking these tools, and we are also enriching our own, religious traditions. And that biblical faith, I believe, will prevail. It will be enriched. It will expand and will continue. That it will not pass away into oblivion. It will not be forgotten, right? The dynasty of this this cosmic spiritual dynasty that we call the biblical faith will continue. Its line will never be interrupted, and we have to be tolerant. We have to be open-minded. That we have to learn to survive, learn to adapt, and to learn from the world. As Jesus Christ commands us to be shrewd as the children of this age. Also to learn the ways of the world, the ways of people, the non-Christians, whether it's other religions or secular values or anything, or so-called secular values. I don't want to take this too far, but that we can learn a lot from the exiled Jews, from Mordecai, from Queen Esther, from Daniel, from Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, from Nehemiah and Ezra. They had to struggle, and they have to come to terms with the reality that they were in a foreign place, alien world, exiled, as pilgrims and sojourners in a land that was not theirs. And that is what's called the Babylonian captivity. But yet it has proven to be enriching to to biblical faith and to the saints of the Bible. Well, thanks for tuning in, and it's nice to hear from you again. Right? God bless you all. Bye-bye.